Have you ever wondered about the journey of a guitar? Why it became from what it was to what it is, or why some are more expensive than the others, or why they sound better than the others? Well, I'm going to tell you. It all started in 700 BC in the Greek era, and it was called a guitarra. They made an instrument called the guitarra, which translates to the guitar, or a more in-depth translation would be sounds of strings, and it was the first instrument that you would pluck like you do a modern day guitar, and it sounds close to what a guitar sounds like today. But the first ever guitar that went by the name guitar would be in the 16th century, and that originated with 4 strings. Normally you will find a guitar with 6 strings, or if someone picks up a guitar, they will normally pick up a guitar with 6 strings. But the first ever guitar started off with 4 strings. And you can find guitars from 4 strings to 16 strings. Guitars normally have about 22 to 24 frets. Frets are don't judge my picture, but these little spaces are called the frets along the neck. This is the neck, this is the body, and these spaces are the frets. What the frets do is you hold down the strings against the frets, and each space makes different sounds. So if you hold down frets up here, they make a low sound. If you hold them down here, they make a high-pitched sound. Now, guitars normally have about 6 strings, 22, 24 frets. And with the strings, you count them from the bottom to the top. The thinnest one is is called number 1, and the thickest one is 6. So you go 1 to 6. And with why they're thinner and thicker, why some are thinner and thicker, is because the thinner ones, when you strum them and pick them, they will vibrate faster. And with vibrations, when we hear vibrations, the faster a vibration is, the higher the pitch is. So we want those thinner strings to make higher pitched noises, and the thicker strings up top to make a slow vibration to make low pitched noises. Now, there are spacing in between the strings and the frets. So the amount of space you have to press the string down until it touches the actual guitar and the fret. With the expensive guitars, you will get very little spacing between the strings and the frets. And that's good. That's easy. The less space there is, the easier it is to hold down frets and chords, and that's less pain on your fingers. But if you get a cheaper guitar, you'll get wider space in between those, and it takes a lot more strength in your fingers to hold those strings down. And that's where you get calluses, and that's where a lot of people pick up the guitar and they get those big spaces and they give up because their finger hurts and they don't want to hold down those strings anymore. So that's why you should really go for a more expensive guitar if you're going to try to pick it up. But those are the spacing and frets. Aging a guitar, you would think once you buy the guitar, unless you change the notes, you can turn the strings and make them go higher or lower with the top part. I'll show you. This part, if you turn those knobs, you can make them higher or lower. The tighter you go, the higher it goes. The looser the string is, the lower it goes. But you can make those higher or lower. But once you buy a guitar, you would think it would stay that sounding until it breaks or you give it up. No, the older a guitar gets, the more vibration and the more body it gets. Body meaning it holds the tones and the notes longer. So with a guitar, when it ages, the wood gets drier and harder. And drier, harder wood makes echoing and vibration a lot more. It makes it a lot easier to do. So the guitar itself sounds better, sounds clearer, and is just it's more like my dad would explain it how you would go to like an opera and it echoes around the room. How, if you ever been to an opera, an orchestra, something like that, it would echo around the room. The wood you use for your guitars also make it sounds differently. The harder wood, which is called mahogany wood, that is the hardest wood. That's on the more expensive guitars, because the harder the wood, like I was saying, the better the vibrations, the better the tone, the clearer it sounds. So people will normally, like the people that are into guitars, will normally have a mahogany guitar. Sitka is the most common wood that is used for guitars, and they don't sound as clear, but they work. Also, the feel of the wood will also change. It won't change the guitar itself and how it sounds itself, but it'll change how the person playing the guitar plays the guitar. So if you have a smooth neck, or the neck feels nice and like just feels nice to play, it'll make it easier for the player to play it and make the notes sound clear. But the harder it feels and not as comfortable it feels, that's puts stress on the player, and that will make the notes sound stressful and forced more. Just in general, aging guitars does make it sound different. So if you buy a guitar, if you have it for a while, it will sound more clear and more in-depth. But with guitars, less is always more, or not less is always more. Switch that around. Don't go with less is always more. If you ever want to get into guitars, spend the money to get a better sounding guitar, because in general, if you spend the money for a more expensive guitar, like I said, the spacing, it will be easier to hold down the chords, your fingers won't hurt as much, and it won't deter you to stop playing because your fingers are hurting. They sound clearer. They also, the strings, they're on lesser or not as expensive guitars. Some get like not as expensive strings, and so they break easier, and once a guitar string breaks, that really deters you from playing. So in general, I would say to go for the more expensive ones. Yeah.